Magic has produced several unique and memorable creature types over the decades. Kor, Cephalids, Eldrazi, Lurgoyfs, Kavu, but the most striking of them all, and the one perhaps most emblematic of the game itself, is the Sliver. They are the ultimate tribe, buffing one another and granting their comrades all of their abilities. In this regard, the original Slivers were inspired by, of all things, plague rats. Mike Elliott, the card designer who made the first Slivers, wanted to riff on plague rats' effect, but have it do more interesting things than simply increasing the creature's power and toughness. He came up with the idea of these creatures giving their abilities to others on the battlefield. Flavor-wise, Elliott imagined these animals as living fragments, or slivers, of a single greater being that had been split apart by some unknown event. The Slivers made their first appearance in 1997 in Tempest. They were included because R&D wanted to have support for a tribal theme. Tribal synergies had existed since all the way back to Alpha, but had been relatively underpowered. Slivers were an attempt to juice them up a bit. Their first iterations included emblematic examples like Muscle Sliver, Winged Sliver, and Horned Sliver. The Tempest Sliver's power level was coupled with a simple but effective visual design that quickly proved popular. They are snake-like and plated, with crested heads, long tails, no clear eyes, and a single talon-tipped arm. The Slivers are shapeshifters capable of rapid evolution, sharing information and traits with one another, teaching each other how to acquire new forms. They operate as a hive mind. In this, they are Magic's equivalent to the Zerg, the swarming alien species from StarCraft. In terms of the lore, Slivers are said to have originated from an unknown plane. They were brought to Wrath, and later Dominaria, by the villainous Volrath, who intended to use them as biological weapons. The set Stronghold built on Tempest's foundation, including the first multicolor Slivers. Power-wise, the most notable is Crystalline Sliver, which grants all Slivers Shroud. The Slivers next appeared in the tribal-themed Onslaught block, showing up in its second expansion, Legions. Legions was a set made up exclusively of creature cards, so the synergistic Slivers were a natural fit. Plus, the head designer of Legions was none other than Mike Elliott. Story-wise, the Legion Slivers had been resurrected by the wizards of the Riptide project, but they broke free. They killed the researchers and ran rampant on the continent of Otaria, their evolution fueled even more by the dark influence of the Mirari. These Slivers are more creative and complex with their abilities, and more refined in their artwork. Shifting Sliver shows a Sliver adapted for water, while Spectral Sliver pushes the envelope even more with a Sliver Spirit. My favorite is Ward Sliver, which references the old Ward cards like Flickering Ward, and boasts beautiful, vivid art by Pete Venters. The flavor text is also a great example of the Sliver's formidable ability to adapt. The first wave of Slivers perished from the Riptide wizard's magic. The second wave shrugged off their spells like water. Root Sliver likewise demonstrates the Sliver's evolved resistance to magic. By this point, Slivers had become an established and beloved magic creature type, so it was only fitting that they showed up once again in Time Spiral block, which was all about the past. Time Spiral served up 26 new Slivers, all of which reference an earlier, usually iconic card. Firewake Sliver pays tribute to Fires of Yavimaya, a card that dominated Invasion block standard. Harmonic Sliver references Aura Shards. Basal Sliver is a wink to Basal Thrall. Vampiric Sliver has much in common with the famous Sengir vampire. Telekinetic Sliver plays on the old enchantment Opposition. Psionic Sliver is a reference to the quirky blue burn spell Psionic Blast. And perhaps the most interesting of them all is Plague Sliver, which functions similarly to the old favorite Juzam Jin, while doubling as a hate card against opposing Sliver decks. Planar Chaos continued this trend. For instance, Necrotic Sliver is a slivery version of Vindicate, Portery Sliver is based on Goblin Legionnaire, and Darkheart Sliver is an homage to Darkheart of the Wood. Planar Chaos also added an alternate reality dimension to some slivers, often shifting their effects into unusual colors. The black Spitting Sliver grants First Strike, the blue Synchronous Sliver grants Vigilance, and the green Reflex Sliver grants Haste. The best designed of the Planar Chaos slivers is Sinew Sliver, which shifts the green Muscle Sliver into white, a color known for its anthem effects. The final set in the block, Future Sight, was all about imagining magic cards and mechanics from the future, so it understandably got even more experimental with the slivers, using them to showcase 5 new keywords, like Fate Seal and Sliver Cycling. The one that made the biggest impact was Virulent Sliver, which gives all slivers Poisonous 1, harking back to old school creatures like Swamp Mosquito, as well as a head to the Infect and Toxic mechanics. After this, it would be 6 years before we saw the slivers again, finally making their reappearance in Magic 2014, which would prove to be controversial. Firstly, this set changed the slivers from granting their buffs to all slivers to instead doing so only for your slivers, which was in keeping with modern Magic design philosophy. But the biggest change was in their appearance. Gone was the snake-like body and singular arm. Instead, these slivers were humanoid, with 4 limbs and hair-like tentacles protruding from their heads. Most players thoroughly disliked this new direction, feeling that these weren't really slivers at all. Magic 2015 largely stuck to this new design. A case in point is Diffusion Sliver, which looks more like a cephalid or mutant octopus than a sliver. Slivers returned to their classic aesthetic with Modern Horizons, a set that, like Time Spiral, looked back to Magic's past. Once again, the slivers in this set riffed on famous cards. Spiteful Sliver is a reference to Spitmare. Tempered Sliver is based on Slith Predator. Scuttling Sliver is a nod to Horseshoe Crab. And Cloud Shredder Sliver is a tribute to Sky Knight Legionnaire, both mechanically and visually. Modern Horizons also imagined the slivers on other planes, particularly Alara. First Sliver's Chosen bears Bant's Exalted mechanic, while Dregscape Sliver has the Unearth ability associated with Grixis. Another element of the slivers worthy of discussion are their legends, all of which cost 1 mana of every color. The first legendary sliver was Stronghold's Sliver Queen, which was actually Magic's first 5-color legendary creature. Somewhat oddly, it broke with the sliver template of granting its effect to all others. But in terms of flavor, this card did provide more insight into how sliver reproduction functioned, drawing parallels with an ant colony. Sliver Queen was followed by Scourge's Sliver Overlord, which seems like the inspiration for Future Sight's Sliver Cycling. Time Spiral then gave us Sliver Legion, which is based on the old tribal artifact Coat of Arms. Magic 2015 had Sliver Hive Lord, which makes the Swarm indestructible. Modern Horizons 1 delivered the first Sliver, a marvelous fusion of flavor and function. Like First Sliver's Chosen and Dregscape Sliver, it features a mechanic from a Alara block, in this case Cascade, which fits perfectly with its art and name. Finally, Commander Masters features Sliver Grave Mother, able to return slivers from the dead and multiply their numbers. All of this means that slivers are one of the game's most mechanically interesting and visually striking creatures. But their aesthetic is not wholly original. Rather, it fits within the tradition of sci-fi creatures drawing on the best designed movie monster ever, the xenomorph. The parallels between aliens and slivers are clear. From their long crested heads and semi-reptilian forms, to their faces lacking visible eyes and their bladed arm, which is akin to a xenomorph's barbed tail. Xenomorphs are also swarm-focused, serving a queen, and can evolve rapidly. In terms of their behavior, both species are unthinking forces of destruction, living to kill, feed, and reproduce. The artwork of the secret lair drop first sliver makes this explicit, using the alien font in its name. So does the secret lair drop version of Sliver Hive Lord, with a design that recalls the abdomen of the alien queen. Several designers worked on the look of the xenomorph over the years, but their appearance originally stemmed from the work of Swiss artist H.R. Geiger. He specialized in dark, creepy artwork fusing the biological and the mechanical, with a particular focus on mutation. In 1977, he published a book of illustrations called Necronomicon, which caught the attention of director Ridley Scott. Geiger's nightmarish imagery was strongly influenced by his tense childhood during World War II. "I could feel the atmosphere when my parents were afraid," Geiger has said. "The lamps were always a bluish dark, so the planes would not bomb us." The xenomorph is the epitome of Geiger's aesthetic, with its metallic sheen, oversized forehead, skeletal body, and iconic mouth within a mouth. Then there's the creature's twisted life cycle, from egg to facehugger to chestburster. In this regard, the xenomorph is perhaps cinema's first truly horrifying alien. While extraterrestrials had existed in sci-fi for decades prior to the xenomorph, they usually featured humanoid designs and looked more goofy than creepy. In shows and movies like Doctor Who and The Thing from Another World, they were often just dudes in cheap costumes. Alien changed all that, reshaping movie monster design forever. Soon, countless films were borrowing ideas from the xenomorph. Examples include the Sarlacc in Return of the Jedi, and most notably, The Predator. The artists working on the 1993 video game Doom also kept a copy of Geiger's Necronomicon with them while they worked. Even the art for the reprinted version of Phyrexian Obliterator is vaguely alien-inspired. The alien's influence is simply massive, and without the xenomorph, there is no Sliver. In other words, slivers represent the merging of xenomorph creature design principles with the mechanics, aesthetics, and flavor of magic. The result is one of the game's best creatures. Slivers are not only cool to look at and fun to play with, they are bound up with magic's history. Hopefully they soon slither out of the shadows and back onto our tabletops. Thanks for watching.